creature like that, how would it ever die?
And this monster stuff's running right at me.
Annihilated by nuclear bombs.
Beast is not dead. I put 4 bullets into him.
Oh, you're crazy.
But I saw that monster too. All I want is for someone to believe me.
Contaminated.
Face. Horrible. Look like it would scare you to death.
All right, let's get to work.
Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Let's see. Do we have a spooky opener? We do have a spooky opener, but it's a little longer than I anticipated. However, welcome in. Well, let me read my default opener here. How about that? I'll do the deep voice.
There are stories whispered in the dark about creatures that knock when they shouldn't, shadows that move when nothing else does, and eyes that see right through you. Welcome to Beyond the Shadows, the podcast that drags the hidden, the haunted, and horrifying into the light. I'm Victus, and I am your intrepid paranormal investigator. Each week we unravel the world's most chilling mysteries and explore the places where fear lives just beneath the surface. So light a candle, check your locks, and lean in close, because tonight we're delving into the Flatwoods Monster.
That's right, the Flatwoods Monster. We said it last week, and I came through. We're gonna do the Flatwoods Monster tonight. Oh, welcome everyone. Welcome. So glad to have everyone here. New overlay. Yep, we've got a new overlay. Lip, I see you're already in. I saw you joined like 5 minutes early. Thank you, thank you, kind sir, for being here so promptly. It's so rare to have somebody consistently watching. But hey, I'm glad you're here. I really am. Back when I was streaming like gaming, nobody watched. Nobody. It was
LUL hello.
Glad to have you. Nobody watched when I was streaming gaming. It's a super saturated market. Nobody watches streamers unless they're half naked with their boobs hanging out. And unfortunately, I don't have boobs. So, yep. No boobs. Sorry. So if you came here for boobs, I'm sorry, but you're not going to get them. Yeah, there's no way around that. I don't have boobs, so. We do have some. So I've been training. I've been training some AI to pull good weekly paranormal news to collate. I would like to start opening the show with some weekly paranormal news. So let's go ahead and knock this paranormal news out, and then we'll get on to our. What shirt are you wearing today? I mean, you kind of see it already, but I don't want to give it all away yet. So, let's see. UFO sightings on the rise. Over 2,000 UFO sightings were reported for the first half of 2025, according to data from the National UFO Reporting Center. New York State alone accounted for 66 of these. The sightings during the same period. Common sightings include orbs, spheres, triangles exhibiting advanced maneuvers. There's increased public and congressional interest in UFOs and UAPs following the whistleblower testimony, although the Pentagon maintains there's no evidence of extraterrestrial origins for these sightings and disavows secret retrieval programs. Also, we have a controversial research on possible alien object. A research paper, not peer-reviewed, however, suggests a possibility of a hostile, quote, alien object could arrive in November of this year, according to Men's Journal. So that's a pretty credible source there. I'm not upset about that. The paper is considered controversial by experts. They brought up the investigator's death we talked about last week. A new paranormal-focused TV show, Travel Channel's Paranormal Caught on Camera, continues into season 9 in 2025. with episodes exploring various alleged paranormal events, including highway hovercrafts, singing ghosts, phantom hands, and mysterious floods at a Titanic exhibit. The new docuseries Out There, Crimes of the Paranormal premiered on Hulu in September of last year, combining true crime with paranormal encounters. Increased beliefs in ghosts. Thank you. Americans were reportedly more likely to believe in ghosts within 5 demographics identifying as higher paranormal beliefs. And focus on cryptids. The Smoky Mounted Bigfoot Conference will focus on the Mothman in 2025. Expedition Bigfoot returned for Season 5 in January of 2025 with the team investigating new clues in Northern California. Let's see. Oh, Ring, the company that makes Ring cameras, has a contest going on where if you submit a video of something paranormal happening, you run the chance of winning up to $100,000. So, listeners, if you're a Ring camera user, keep an eye on your movement and your motion captures and your motion detections, because if you've got a good, convincing video of the paranormal, Ring may pay you $100,000. And right on par with that, Ring camera captures alien-like figure in Southern California, an alien-like figure walking across the yard in July of 2025. And paranormal conventions, several paranormal events and conventions are planned for the remainder of the year, including Paranormal Research Symposium in Gettysburg in August 23rd of 2025, the National Paranormal Day, Haunted Rail Yard, and Strand Ghost Tours in Galveston, Texas will be in May. May, June, July. Yep, that one's passed. Sorry. Boyd Paranormal Convention in late September of 2025, and Paranormal Fest 2025 will be at Greenwood. Happy haunts. And that'll wrap it up for this week's paranormal news. If you like it, let us know. If you don't, let us know. Hey, we've got our information at the bottom of the screen now. It's down here. So if you want to email us or check out the YouTube channel, it's here. There you go. Look how easy that is. Also, if you like the new overlay, let us know. Email us. Comment on the YouTube channel, whatever,
Always nice to hear a rundown of the week.
Yes, and I think that's why I think it'd be good to do this at the beginning of the week. It's a nice palate cleanser to get you on par with what we're about to talk about. It's a good segue between the professional opening and the investigations. So, cool, we're going to stick with it. We'll just see, make sure this AI thing pumps out decent enough information for us. We'll see how it goes. And let's go ahead and cool this music off right here. We've got the best segment of the show, the one that everybody looks forward to, or maybe I do anyway. We're going to do, hold on, let me see. What's the correct audio sound to do? Yeah. What shirt are you wearing today? What shirt are you wearing today? So this week, I have, for your viewing pleasure, my hide-and-seek champion, Bigfoot. Yeah. Super cool. I was able to get this for just a few bucks. I was very, very happy with that. The good cryptid shirts are hard to come across. I think I'm going to start collecting cryptid shirts. If you can't tell from behind me, I collect collections. My collection of collections. Everything from let me see if I can do this right here. I've got a handmade porcelain Jack Skellington from Hot Topic from back in the day. I used to be a manager at Hot Topic. Surprise. And that was one of the things that they were going to throw away because they weren't selling, but they're hand numbered. I think they only made 1,000 of them, and I got one. And every gaming system. So this shelf here and the shelf below it, you can't tell, but this is all Sony products. These are all of my gaming systems, all the way from a Commodore 64 up to PlayStation 4 and PlayStation VR. Everything in between, everything you could think of. I've saved every gaming console from when I was a kid. I'm a hardcore gamer, daily. But yes, I collect collections. It's my thing now. So I'm thinking I'm going to start collecting, I think I'm going to start collecting cryptid shirts. Or, doing the research for this episode made me really think about getting an original. I found a guy selling one on eBay, an original print of a poster from back in the 1950s. I think it was posted. They were originally posted in front of a movie theater. That if you paid for a movie theater ticket, you got a free poster, and it is of the Flatwoods Monster standing next to a guy. And so I'm kind of interested. Maybe it's something I might want to do. I would love to adorn some more posters back here, aside from my I Want to Believe poster. It would be super cool to get my hands on an original 1950s Flatwoods Monster poster. But that costs money, and I am not a well-off individual. That's why I podcast. So, we're going to get into it. I said last week we're going to do Flatwoods Monster, and this week we are going to do Flatwoods Monster. I think before we continue, I do want to take just a moment, just a tiny moment, not too much. And I want to thank all of the new followers on the YouTube channel. It has been a good week for the YouTube channel. We jumped up to 211 subscribers. We got 11 subscribers just this week. And those of you who have subscribed, thank you. But I will say I can't give you a shout out because your privacy settings won't tell me who you are. So that being said, let's see. Season 1 was 30 episodes. Season 2 is 25. We are at 55 episodes. So we have covered it over a full year of episodes on this podcast, and I am very pleased to announce that. Yes, that's right. 55 episodes. I couldn't believe it. A year ago, I think it was a year ago this week, I quit my day job. Well, it wasn't a day job. It was a nighttime job. I quit my nighttime job, and it was during the 2 or 3 weeks when I was trying to find a regular job that I came up with the idea for the podcast. And, there was a few of us. We were just hanging out in voice chat in the Discord channel, and we were playing some video game. And I was just like, hey, any of you guys want to do this podcast with me? I've got an idea. What do you think? And like 2 of my 3 friends were like, no, that's not quite what I want to do. Oh, but Aeon spoke up, and Aeon was with me for the first half of this season and all of last season. He will return once his personal business is sorted. I did speak with him at length this week. He's very busy, but also doing his very best to wrap up his personal matters. So when he comes back, I'm sure we will have layout changes again, because we're running off of a single computer now, so everything's a little different. But enough of the dilly-dallying, as my favorite podcasters like to say. Shout out to This Paranormal Life. Check them out. If you like this stuff, go check out This Paranormal Life. These guys are hilarious, and I can only aspire to be as great as them. If you listen, I think it was like 2 years ago, I submitted an idea for an episode, and they ended up covering it on their podcast. And, it was them that really gave me the inspiration and the drive to want to push forward and really become a full-time, well, I say full-time podcaster, but I still have a full-time job. It was their podcast that really pushed me to want to do the podcasting, because this is a passion of mine. And 55 episodes later, I'm really glad that everybody's here, and I'm grateful and thankful for everyone. And I hope it stick with us for the remainder of the show. So thank you, everybody. That being said, I have a very strong beverage with me this evening, and we're going to talk about the Flatwoods Monster. We're going to talk, wait, let me see. How do I do this dramatically?
The Flatwoods Monster.
Yeah, that's about as dramatic as it gets. Okay. So we're going to get into it now. So I thought I knew everything about the Flatwoods Monster. I really thought it was kind of just like a blah blah subject, something that, you know, it was like, oh, a creature appeared to some folks and the local legend was born from it. But that's not necessarily the case here. So through the research, you will see, just as I've seen, that a lot of this has to do with firsthand testimony. There's spooky happenings, and we are not sure to this day whether or not the Flatwoods Monster is a cryptid or an extraterrestrial. And if you've seen the title of this week's episode, we also are unsure if it's a sandwich. So, oh geez, I did it. I said the word. All right, let me get a drink. The S word. S-O word. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to get sloppy pretty quick. So hold on to your horses, everybody. Hold on to your horses. Yeah, hold on to them. So, oh my gosh. Geez. Right after, yeah. Maybe I should stop drinking when I say the S word.
L-U-L.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe subconsciously I want to say the S word. This is really good. It's my first time having a beverage in a paper container. So, cool. We need to get sponsored by, like, the beer I drink while I'm podcasting. I wonder if they would do it. Anywhoots. I was going to use... Yeah, I lost my train of thought. What was the boom?
As filler words go, it's not the worst.
It's not. It really isn't. I started saying the S word, so I'd stop saying, it strikes a person as unprofessional when you use the word a bunch. So I try not to say it. I don't have the time to go through and edit every single episode. So I try to keep it as professional as possible. Even though I'm drinking while I'm recording. But, you know, that's part of the fun of the episodes, right? Like, compare my voice to now, to the end of the episodes, and I'm sure I've got lots of slurring going on. Yeah, I'm sure I do. I'm not ashamed of it. We're having fun. That's what matters. Vine boom. I think that's what I was looking for. There it is. The story takes place in September 12th of 1952, Flatwoods, West Virginia. At around 7:15 p.m., just as the sun began to vanish behind the ridgeline, a bright, fiery object streaked across the evening sky. An otherworldly arc slicing from northwest horizon and crashing somewhere into the dense woods of Braxton County. Witnesses across 3 counties saw it. Some described it as a fireball, others a flaming aircraft. But in the small, sleepy town of Flatwoods, it was something much stranger. On the front lawns of Flatwood Elementary School, a group of boys, Edward, Fred May, Tommy Heyer, and a few of their friends were playing football when the object blazed overhead. They watched it descend, trailing a thick trail of smoke and seemingly land on a nearby hill. Excited and unnerved, the boys ran to the home of Kathleen May, Edward and Fred's mother. She didn't brush them off as hysterical children. She listened, and she believed them. Grabbing a flashlight, Kathleen led the group towards the hilltop. Joining them were National Guardsman Eugene Lemon, Neil Nunley, and a local dog. The air as they climbed grew heavy and metallic, tinged with a pungent sulfur odor that stung the nose and made their throats tighten. It wasn't just the scent, it was the atmosphere itself. Thick, pressurizing, and wrong. Near the crest they saw it. First, a pulsing red light through the trees. Then, a shape. Roughly 10 feet tall, towering above the ground, a strange figure. Dark, mechanical, cloaked. Its face glowed with a sickly orange light, shaped like a spade. Its eyes, if they were eyes, pierced through the darkness with a terrifying brilliance. Some said it hovered, some swore it floated with no sound. But all of them would remember the smell, like burnt oil and metal, and the sound like a hissing noise, like steam or something broken, some broken machine straining to live. In an instant, a bright light flashed. And I had lost my spot in my script. Hold on. Wait for it. I'm sorry. Yeah, I ruined the whole vibe. Jeez. Hold on. I need to scroll a little bit. Sorry, this is what happens when you do live productions like this. Towering above, strange figure, dark mechanical, the shape of the spade, its eyes, pierced through the terrifying brilliance. There we go. Yeah, I found it. I found the spot. Thank you, the intrepid paranormal investigator. Hard at work. Any hoots. In an instant, a blinding light flashed. The figure emitted a loud shriek, and then chaos. Eugene Lemon screamed and dropped the flashlight. The group turned and ran, stumbling down the hill, not daring to look back. The dog fled and never returned. Behind them, the strange light pulsed one final time, and then it went dark. By morning, the local sheriff had investigated. There were no traces of a crash, no debris, no sign of the creature, but something had happened, something real. Something terrifying. The newspaper called it the Phantom of the Flatwoods. The Air Force quietly filed it under Project Blue Book, and the town, forever changed, would become a cornerstone of cryptid lore. 70 years later, the question still lingers, like that burning metallic fog on the hillside. What did those witnesses really see in the woods of West Virginia that night, and why did the government arrive so quickly?
Only to leave so quietly.
Tonight, we go beyond the headlines, beyond the skeptics, and deep into the shadows of the strangest creature encounter in American history. This is the Flatwoods Monster. Thank you for that. Thank you. Yes, I've been working on my live audio editing. It seems to be working. It seems to be. Because people usually don't watch past the first 15 minutes anyway. So if you made it to this point, thanks for sticking around. All right. So we've come to this is the story. This is the initial part of the story. This is what the entire lore around the Flatwoods Monster revolves around is this one sighting, and there are others, and we'll talk about those here shortly. But this is the crux. This is the focal point. Is it a UFO? Is it an alien? Is it a cryptid? Is it a sandwich? We don't know. We don't know. But we're going to find out tonight. We will come to consensus whether or not this thing is truly paranormal. Or is it a guy with planks of wood and a fancy cloak troping around the woods, trying to be mysterious? I don't know. Well, we're going to find out. Let's dive into Act 1 here, folks. Flatwoods, West Virginia, population barely 300 in the early 1950s, was the kind of town where nothing happened unless you made it happen. Nestled in the heart of Braxton County and hugged by the Appalachian Hills, Flatwoods wasn't on most maps, and certainly it wasn't on anyone's radar. There are no airports, no tourist attractions, no major highways, just coal miners, factory workers, school teachers, and farmers. Life was simple and predictable, even quiet. But by September of 1952, America was anything but. The United States was waist deep in the Cold War. The Korean conflict was raging, nuclear fears large. The idea that anything in the sky could be Soviet rather than celestial was becoming common. Across the country, UFO sightings were on the rise. The government had launched Project Blue Book, an official investigation into flying saucers and unexplained aerial phenomena. But to the average citizen of Braxton County, those ideas still felt distant. The world outside moved fast, but Flatwoods hadn't caught up. And that would all change at a single night. The witnesses. Let's start with who was there. Because unlike many UFO or cryptid sightings, this case had multiple direct witnesses. Kathleen May, the 32-year-old mother of the two boys, was described by many reporters as respectable, level-headed, and not prone to fantasy. She worked hard and was well known in the community. She would become the central adult voice in the story. Edward and Fred May, aged 13 and 12, respectively, were playing football when the incident began. They saw the object streak through the sky and descend behind a ridge. Tommy Heyer, 10 years old, joined the Mays boys when they ran to tell Kathleen. And Eugene Lemon, 17, was a member of West Virginia's National Guard. He was dating Kathleen's daughter at the time and is often credited with being the most visibly affected by what happened that night. And finally, Neil Nunley and Ronnie Shaver, two more local boys, also followed the group up the hillside. In all, 7 people plus a dog, can't forget the dog, made that eerie trek towards the landing site. At around 7:15 p.m. on September 12 in 1952, a strange flaming object was seen streaking across the sky by dozens of witnesses across multiple counties. Reports came in as far as Wheeling, 100 miles away. Some described it as a meteor, where others thought it might be a plane on fire. A few, especially those who watched it descend slowly, believed it was something far more exotic. Radar stations in the area briefly detected something anomalous in the air, but this was during a time when radar signatures could easily be dismissed or classified. There was no official announcement from the military, no crash site was identified, but the people of Flatwoods didn't need an official explanation. They had seen something fall behind the trees, and as far as they were concerned, it had landed on Bailey Fisher's farm just outside of town. That's where the group went. The terrain wasn't easy. As the group made their way through the brush up the hillside, the smell hit them first. A strong sulfur-like odor. Some later compared it to burning metal or ozone. Something sharp and mechanical. Several of the younger witnesses began coughing. Eugene Lemon, in particular, would later report that his eyes began to water and sting. Hold, please. The dog, which had accompanied them began barking erratically before suddenly taking off into the darkness and never returning home. At the crest of the hill, the group spotted something glowing, a reddish pulsing light. It was set near the ground, not in the sky, and it flickered as if it were malfunctioning. Then, just behind it, they saw the figure. Later they would describe it, but their accounts were similar, differed in the details, and maybe that's what makes it so haunting. Kathleen May described a 10 to 12-foot figure shaped like a spade. Oh, let me turn that down just a little bit. Ew, that's a little loud. Hold on. There we go. Yeah. Kathleen May described a 10 to 12-foot tall figure shaped like a spade with a glowing face, clawed hands, and a long green cloak that appeared to be metallic or mechanical in nature. Its face wasn't like a human's. It didn't have features so much as lights, piercing, circular, and orange. The shape of its head seemed fused with the body as though it wore a hood or had no neck at all, and perhaps most unsettling of all, it hovered. Oh my gosh, too many mice. Eugene Lemon claimed the figure emitted a shrill, mechanical noise like a hiss or a shriek and glided toward them just slightly before releasing an intense bright light. That was all it took, and Eugene dropped the flashlight, Kathleen screamed, the children bolted. In the mad scramble back down the hill, a few fell. Everyone was panicking, but behind them, the glow from the hill slowly dimmed and then vanished. No one spoke for several minutes after they returned to town. No one knew what they'd seen, but all of them agreed on one thing. It hadn't been human. That night, Sheriff Robert Carr visited the site. So did A. Lee Stewart, a reporter from the Braxton Democrat. Neither man saw the creature, but they both noted unusual marks on the ground, long skid marks, flattened vegetation, and that same metallic odor lingering in the air. Stewart filed his report within hours, and it quickly went national. By the next morning, military officials had quietly arrived in the area. They interviewed the witnesses, they took measurements, and then, just as quickly, they left. No explanations, no reports filed. It would take years before the pieces of that investigation, particularly the Air Force's involvement, would come to light under the Blue Book files. But even in 1952, the people of Flatwoods knew something had changed. Kids didn't go near the hill. Adults spoke in hushed tones, and the witnesses, especially Kathleen and Eugene, were subjected to a whirlwind of scrutiny, ridicule, and occasionally silent visits from serious-looking men in dark suits. Something on that hill happened. And while the world was eager to move on to the next headline, the people who were there never forgot the terror they felt, or the thing they saw.
I'm not saying it's space aliens, right? But it goes without saying it's freaking space aliens.
Sounds like aliens. So far, it sounds like aliens. We're definitely ringing the extraterrestrial bell on this one. I could see how somebody would say that this is cryptid. I could see it because it's more like creature-esque than anything, right? They don't necessarily see a craft, but they did see something streak through the sky, and they saw a glowing light, and then something came from behind it, which is interesting to me, because usually, just usually, we see if there's some type of craft that has crashed, when somebody approaches it, we're usually seeing, before the person gets to whatever crashed, whatever entity is there, is going to stand in between the humans and the crash. And it's interesting that they said specifically that it came from behind the object. So take that for what it's worth. You know, it's just a little detail I want to point out that doesn't quite fit the cookie cutter that we look for when it comes to extraterrestrials. So if I had to put a label on it right now, I would say, geez, it's almost like a cryptid, almost. However, we have the object crashing from the sky, and the fact that the light went out so quickly afterward makes me wonder if it's not like, not so much a craft, but I don't know, like one of the pods from freaking Dragon Ball, right? The thing crashes and thing just climbs out of it because it's all it's going to do. It can't fly. It has no discernible method of navigating, right? So all it can do is crash because it was sent to the planet. And if if we follow that train of thought, then sure, it's extraterrestrial. However, if it can't leave, is it really extraterrestrial? At what point does an extraterrestrial that cannot leave planet Earth become a cryptid? A question for you. Not so far-fetched to think about it, is it? Oh, geez, I'm clearing my throat already. The hiccups are going to get me tonight. I know it. I know it. Oh, geez. I don't want the hiccups so early tonight. That was delicious, and it's empty. Cool. Excuse me. Let's move forward. So by dawn on September 13 of 1952, the strange events on that hilltop had already begun to ripple outward. Far beyond the borders of Flatwoods, the local paper, the Braxton Democrat, published its first report within 24 hours of the sighting. Oh no. Was that a hiccup? Please don't be a hiccup. Liquids. I need liquids. Even if it's a beer, fine with me. The local paper, the Braxton Democrat, published its first report within 24 hours of the sighting. Reporter A. Lee Stewart, who had personally gone to the site the night before, wasted no time capturing the bizarre details. His headlines were blunt: Braxton County residents frightened by monster. The eyewitness accounts from Kathleen May and Eugene Lemon were front and center. Stewart described the group as visibly shaken and sincere, but that sincerity would quickly be put to the test. We do have... I have the newspaper clipping. Hold on.
Never realized what a big boy he is. Also, you're muted on this scene.
I don't know why, but I deleted my own mic. Wow. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Yes, he's very big. And this is actually the poster that they're holding. This is the poster that I looked at on eBay tonight. Thank you for that, Lip, by the way. Thank you so much. Let me go ahead and read this. This says, the monster which prowled the hills of Braxton County on Friday, September 12, was drawn by a New York artist from descriptions given by Mrs. Kathleen May and Jean Lemon, Flatwoods residents who said they saw the thing. The two witnesses with A. Lee Stewart, Jr., Sutton publisher, told their I can't read part of it because the little tear in it. Their experiences on We the People television show on New York Friday night. The artist's conception was featured on the program with a background of weird. I can't read that. They hold the portrait, which they say is quite accurate. This photo was taken at the Greyhound bus terminal. So there you go. Yeah, this is the definitive image of the Flatwoods Monster. We have many, many, many others. I think I pulled like 8 or 9 for this episode tonight. This is a pretty cool little photo. So, oh my gosh, I did it again. Where's my beverage? I need my beverage. Yep, the new drinking game. Everybody's involved. Within 48 hours, wire services picked up the story. Newspapers from New York to Los Angeles ran variations of the headline, often with increasingly sensationalized language. Terms like, quote, space monster and phantom alien and metal creature became common. Some called it a flying saucer occupant. Others called it just a hoax. The witnesses, particularly Kathleen May and Eugene Lemon, were suddenly thrust into the national spotlight. Interview requests poured in. Reporters camped outside their homes, and while some publications treated them fairly, others were openly mocking. The Charleston Gazette, for example, printed a cartoon showing a cartoonish alien chasing townspeople, portraying the whole thing as hillbilly hysteria. Kathleen ever composed, did her best to stay grounded. In interviews, she remained consistent in her description of the creature, the smell, the lights, and the fear. She wasn't trying to get rich or famous. She was trying to be heard. Eugene, on the other hand, didn't handle this well. The National Guardsman was reportedly deeply shaken, not just from the encounter, but from the media pressure. He told his friends that he had nightmares. Some said he never emotionally recovered. And yet, despite the attention, one voice was conspicuously silent: the U.S. military. The day after the sighting, the witnesses reported seeing Air Force personnel and unmarked vehicles in the area. Some believe they were from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, the same installation connected with Project Blue Book, and rumored to house classified materials related to UFO phenomena. While no official Air Force documentation initially acknowledged their presence, locals described seeing men taking soil samples and measuring radiation levels and asking pointed questions about what the witnesses saw. There was no formal statement made by the military, not to the town, not to the media, and certainly not to the witnesses. Years later, under the Freedom of Information Act, requests, it was confirmed that the incident was filed in Project Blue Book under the category of, quote, unexplained aerial phenomena. But at the time, the official Air Force explanation was, when it finally came, was underwhelming, if not insulting. They claimed the witnesses had seen the following: a meteor, which had accounted for the object in the sky, and a barn owl, which perched on a limb, which supposedly explained the creature's glowing eyes and hissing sound. And also panic and hysteria, caused by overactive imaginations and fueled by the stress of the Cold War. I don't believe this. Not one bit. I'm sorry. It's the easy way out. They love doing this. I'm not going to accept it. So let's pick apart the owl theory. To this day, skeptics cite the barn owl explanation as rational debunking of the event. But let's examine that critically. A barn owl perched on a limb doesn't float 10 feet in the air. Its eyes glow when struck by light, but not with an orange pulsating hue. Not to mention, it doesn't smell like burning metal, it doesn't cause ground impressions, and it doesn't certainly emit a mechanical shriek that drives people into a panic. The dimensions described, 10 to 12 feet tall, are far beyond even the most exaggerated owl misidentification. The hovering motion, the cloak-like body, the mechanical features, none of it aligns with an owl. Moreover, multiple witnesses described a glowing object on the ground, separate from the creature. This machine or craft pulsed with light and emitted a strange heat. If it were simply a misidentified animal, how do you explain the skid marks, the flattened vegetation, or the nausea experienced by the witnesses afterward? The owl theory, while convenient, begins to look more like a deliberate attempt to minimize attention than an honest explanation. Facts. 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 This is what the government does. They obfuscate and they misdirect. Oh, wait. Isn't that a... Oh, wait. Isn't that an episode of the X-Files? Hold on. Yes. It is deceive, inveigle, and obfuscate. In that episode, Scully titles her report as deceptive, intelligible, and obfuscative. And that is the title. So it is one of the 3 episodes of the X-Files where, after the intro video, where it says, it pops up and says, the truth is out there. This is one of the few episodes where it says deceive, inveigle, obfuscate. And I just happened to see it one time, and I had to Google it to make sure I didn't see something wrong. The X-Files are on repeat at this household. Yeah, that's what we do. So now we come down to the physical effects. And then there were the health issues. In the days following the encounters, several of the witnesses reported nausea, throat irritation, and conjunctivitis. That's eye inflammation, by the way. Eugene Lemon was said to have experienced tremors and had difficulty sleeping. Kathleen May's son reported had throat swelling that lasted for days. Dr. Robert Smith, a local physician, examined several of the witnesses and noted mild radiation-like symptoms: burning of the throat, red skin, eye irritation. all consistent with.
Been a few years since I've done an X-Files watch through. Might be time for another one. LUL.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with going back and watching the X-Files. I have got every single episode on my server here at the house, and there on the weekends, we generally put something on. My wife and I will put something on that we can watch that we don't have to be 100% involved in, just to have some background noise. And the X-Files is a really good go-to. It's good just to have some background sound in the house, because if it's too quiet, I have trouble concentrating, doing what I need to do for the weekend. But I love the
There's
X-Files.
like 200 episodes though, so it takes a while.
It does.
LUL.
Let me, yeah, let's see. How many? Episodes of the X-Files. 218. Good call. Yeah. Yeah, we'll put it on a playlist and we'll just watch it until it's time to go to bed. And then we watch cartoons while we sleep. I say that. You don't really watch them while you're sleeping, but cartoons are running while we sleep. I love the X-Files. The X-Files, between the X-Files and Coast to Coast AM, that's what really got me into the paranormal world to begin with. It was one of the very, very few things my dad and I did together. Every week we would watch the X-Files together, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I didn't understand half of what was going on, but I absolutely loved it. And I still have memories of nightmares from specific episodes that to this day are so vivid. You know, X-Files was the foundation of my life, and that's why I watch it today. It's one of the best. Like, why aren't the X-Files on the air today? I don't know. I could see that if the X-Files were to go on like Hulu or Fox or something today, they would probably do really well. Because right now we do have a resurgence of interest in the paranormal. And fortunately, it's because of anime. Dandadan is the big anime right now. Everybody loves Dandadan. It's so good. And season 1 is crammed packed full of paranormal stuff. We're talking like demons, ghosts, spirits, aliens, UFOs, cryptids. As a matter of fact, I think it's the first or second episode of Dandadan. The Flatwoods Monster makes an appearance. So take that for what it's worth. But I do need to peel off for just a second. I gotta use the restroom. And we'll be back. We'll talk a little bit more about the X-Files. And then we'll get back into the story. Hold tight, folks. Hello, I've returned. I've returned. I'm alive. My dog almost didn't let me come back. You will see. He does make appearances every now and again. Hold on. Yeah, I see it. I see you. Awesome sauce. Cool. Are we ready to move forward? Oh, we were talking about the X-Files. Yes, yes, yes. X-Files are a prominent feature in my household. I love the X-Files. Love the X-Files. The I think it was like the second or third episode really got me when I was a kid. It had that creature that hid in like porta potties and would attack people when they used it. Scared the hell out of me. I was scared of porta potties until I was like 15. But, you know, I say again, it did lead to the foundation of what we're doing today in the podcast because it sparked the interest in the unknown, right? And then on top of that, I dealt with, I would camp out in my backyard. And I'm sure I've said this many, many times before, but I would camp out in my backyard. And at the time, I only had a handful of CDs. And I would listen to a couple of the CDs until I got bored with them. And then would switch the radio. And I've never enjoyed mainstream music. Never. So I would switch to AM radio, and I would spend like 30 minutes fine-tuning until I found Coast to Coast AM. And Coast to Coast AM was the show that solidified my interest in the paranormal. Ooh, we got some thunder outside. Hopefully we don't drop tonight. We'll see what happens. We've got some bad weather coming in. It seems to be better with the desktop than it did the laptop, so hopefully we'll keep connected. If not, we'll upload later to YouTube and Spotify. So, Coast to Coast AM and the X-Files was the foundation for me for investigating or being generally interested in the paranormal. And it wasn't until like, 2017, 2018 that I really decided to take the interest into my own hands and begin, actively paranormal investigating. And I did for like a year. I did like ghost hunting and stuff. It was a blast. I have some crazy stories. And, we talked about them in season 1. And if you really want to hear them, I'll be glad to tell you some of the stories from the ghost hunting. But, it kind of came to a turning point for me that I've always been super interested in this paranormal. And it wasn't until a year ago, this week, that, I've really put my passion into what we're doing today. And here we are today, and I'm glad you're all here. I'm glad you're here. So, I used the word. Jeez, let me drink. Hold on. Let's cover. I have a little tiny paragraph here about the physical effects. Dr. Robert Smith was the local physician who examined several of the witnesses and noted mild radiation-like symptoms, burning of the throat, red skin, and eye irritation, all consistent with short-term exposure to something caustic or energetic. But no source was ever officially identified, and the Air Force didn't follow up.
Would love to hear them sometime, but don't want to neglect Mr. Flatwoods.
Yeah, well, maybe if we rip through this story, we're on par to finish on time tonight. So, if you remind me towards the end, I would be glad to tell you a couple stories from ghost hunting. No further medical investigations were authorized, and by the end of the week, the men in suits were gone. And as the story spread, Flatwoods itself became divided. Some townspeople rallied behind the witnesses, defending their integrity and warning others not to mock what they didn't understand. Others distanced themselves, afraid of being labeled as crazy by association. Local churches were warned against the quote, demonic nature of the entity. Some preachers described it as a test of faith, while others saw it as a sign of the end times. This town wasn't just dealing with a monster, it was dealing with a cultural earthquake. And in the coming months, Project Blue Book would quietly categorize the Flatwoods Monster case as a, quote, non-threat. Internal notes released decades later, which is very recently, suggested the military's primary concern wasn't what the witnesses saw, but how widely the story was spreading. Public panic was something they were instructed to contain. Truth? That was secondary. The witnesses never received closure. They were left to grapple with the reality no one wanted to acknowledge. And as 1952 drew to a close, the strange object that had descended into Braxton County faded from the national spotlight. But for the people of Flatwoods, the night of September 12th would remain etched in the memory, not just for the thing they saw, but for the silence that followed. The Flatwoods Monster was not an isolated event. While the hills of Braxton County might have hosted the most theatrical encounter, it was far from the only strange occurrence in West Virginia, or even that same week. As the dust began to settle in the Flatwoods, investigators, researchers, and later historians began to uncover a pattern, one of strange lights in the sky, unexplainable encounters with non-human entities, and government silence. The deeper you dig into 1952, the more it feels like something was happening just below the surface. Case file number 1. Before the monster even appeared, a wave of UFO sightings had begun sweeping through the eastern United States. And on that same night as the Flatwoods sighting, September 12 of 1952, residents of Washington, D.C., Pittsburgh, and Richmond reported seeing bright red or orange fireballs streaking across the sky. NORAD radar installations allegedly picked up unusual blips, which were initially dismissed as temperature inversions, a catch-all explanation used frequently during Project Blue Book. In Gassaway, West Virginia, just 10 miles from Flatwoods, multiple residents claimed to see a glowing object hover, then descend behind a ridge. Sound familiar? That same night in Frametown, a small town just 20 miles south, a mother and daughter experienced what would later be called a Flatwoods adjacent encounter. Case file 2. George and Edith Snintowski were driving through Braxton County on their honeymoon, passing near Frametown, when their car suddenly stalled. The engine died without warning. It was after dark. There was no cell phone, no roadside service, just the two of them in the dark forest pressing in around the road. That's when the smell hit them. Sulfur, metal, and ozone. The same odor reported by the Flatwoods witnesses. George opened the hood, but there was no mechanical failure. Everything seemed normal, but the car refused to start. Then came the sound. A low, humming, rhythmic, and electric sound. Suddenly, they both saw something moving in the woods. Tall, dark, gliding. Edith described it as glowing eyes in a metal dress. George, trying to remain calm, locked the doors. They both sat in silence as the figure moved past them, slowly before vanishing into the brush. Minutes later, their car restarted without hesitation. And then suddenly, they both saw something moving in the woods, tall, dark, and gliding. Edith described it as having glowing eyes. They never spoke about it publicly until years later, when researchers began drawing parallels to the Flatwoods incident. To this day, the encounter is one of the most eerily similar to the original sighting, and yet it rarely makes it into mainstream accounts. Case File 3. In the weeks following the Flatwoods Monster report, several families in the Wheeling, West Virginia, began reporting, quote, visitors to their homes. Strange individuals dressed in black suits, asking vague questions about local aircraft sightings, weather patterns, and even whether the family owned cameras. These men provided no identification, no explanation for their questions, and left without incident. They didn't threaten or coerce, but their presence was unsettling, and at the time, most of the people chalked it up to government agents. But when stories of the Men in Black began to circulate years later, these early visits took on a new meaning. Was it possible the Flatwoods Monster was part of a larger series of interactions, one that the public was never meant to see? So now we get to the meat of the mystery. What was it? Let's break down 3 dominant theories that have persisted over the decades. Theory number 1. An extraterrestrial encounter. This is the most popular theory among believers. According to this line of thinking, the object in the sky was a damaged spacecraft, and the creature was either an alien being escaping the wreckage, a suit or probe designed to explore the area, or even an injured pilot trying to signal or repair its craft. The physical symptoms experienced by the witnesses, nausea, eye irritation, and anxiety, are interpreted as side effects of radiation exposure or proximity to an alien energy source. The glowing machine-like base, the pulsating lights, the mechanical sounds, all support the idea of an advanced technology. Proponents argue that the military's rapid response, followed by its silence, is further evidence that the government knew more than it let on. But critics of this theory say it's too reliant on speculative logic. There's no hard proof, no debris, no photos, just testimony. But still, for many, the consistencies of those testimonies keeps the alien explanation alive. Theory number 2. Interdimensional entity. This lesser-known theory suggests that what the witnesses encountered wasn't from another planet, but from another dimension. The sudden appearance and disappearance, the warping of atmosphere, the overwhelming sense of dread, the not quite physical description of the creature, all fit into modern theories of ultra-terrestrial encounters. These beings aren't aliens in the traditional sense, but entities that cross into our reality under specific conditions and often briefly. It would explain the lack of physical evidence, the short duration of the event, and the psychological trauma. It also matches other high strangeness cases where cryptids, UFOs, and poltergeist-like effects overlap. The biggest issue, there's less evidence than the extraterrestrial theory. It's difficult to prove, but for those who believe in the supernatural and metaphysical, it makes a strange kind of sense, right? That, yeah, I'm leaning towards theory 2 so far. It makes the most sense. Theory number 3. Government psychological warfare experiment. Now we get into darker territory. Some researchers, particularly in the French communities, have proposed that the Flatwoods encounter was an orchestrated psychological test. They point to Project MKUltra, which we covered in Season 1, Operation Paperclip, and other documented examples of the U.S. government conducting unethical experiments on citizens without their consent. What if the object was a test vehicle? The creature, a robot or suit designed to study fear response? It's a stretch, but not entirely out of the question. West Virginia was rural, isolated, and filled with communities unlikely to fight back or make national noise. And the immediate military presence, followed by a push to silence the incident, makes the theory hard to ignore entirely. The problem, like the others, no documentation, no whistleblowers, just speculation. So now we come to something a little unorthodox that hasn't really been speculated until just recently. We're about to touch on, just slightly, the Braxton County Triangle. One of the more recent developments in Flatwoods Monster research is the idea of the Braxton County Triangle, a region where multiple sightings, paranormal events, and UFO flaps occur within a short geographic range and a time window. In 1952 alone, 6 major UFO reports, 2 close encounters, and multiple radar anomalies were recorded within a 30-mile radius of Flatwoods. What was drawing them here? Some believe there's something in the geology, magnetic anomalies, quartz formations, or natural energy lines. Others think of it it's cultural, a place where stories and fear perpetuate more sightings, but the pattern remains. Flatwoods wasn't a fluke. It was a flashpoint. And in the weeks that followed the Flatwoods Monster sighting, life in Braxton County changed. But not always in the way witnesses expected. The encounter had Okay, hold please. Yeah. Lots of reading. Lots of fumbling. The encounter had catapulted the small town into national attention, but the light of the spotlight eventually faded, leaving behind something darker: stigma, skepticism, and silence. For the people who had experienced the night firsthand, the true monster wasn't just the entity they saw on the hill, it was what came after. Oh, the transition didn't work. Wow, that sucked. Wait, why didn't it do that? There we go. That's what it's supposed to do. Yeah, that's what it's supposed to do. There we go. I'm gonna let this slideshow run. Oh, wow, that's way too fast. Oh, geez. All right, I'm gonna leave this slideshow running so you can see these pictures that I've got. Of all the witnesses, none bore the weight of public scrutiny more than Kathleen May and Eugene Lemon. Kathleen remained composed in interviews and always maintained her account, but privately, she grew exhausted by the constrained media attention and accusations of hoaxing. Some neighbors grew distant. Church members stopped inviting her to gatherings. Even those who believed her tended to avoid the subject. Nobody wanted to be seen as crazy by association. But still, she never backed down. And for years after the event, she insisted, "I know what I saw, and it wasn't from this earth." Eugene Lemon, meanwhile, did not fare as well. Described by many as confident and good-natured before the event, Eugene withdrew socially. Friends noted a persistent nervousness, frequent nightmares, and a growing paranoia. He even eventually left the National Guard. When interviewed years later, he refused to speculate on what he'd seen. Quote, "I don't know what it was." End quote. He told local reporters in 1960, "And I don't want to talk about it anymore." Even the younger boys, Fred and Edwin May, Tommy Heyer, and Neil Nunley, reported lingering anxiety for years. Though they were praised in the town initially, many of them eventually stopped speaking out about the event altogether. Some moved away, others stayed quiet. The memory of that night for them remained both vivid and traumatic. It wasn't just what they saw, it was that no one believed them. So while the national media quickly shifted its attention elsewhere, the story of the Flatwoods Monster never completely disappeared. It began to mutate, as all good legends do. In local folklore, the creature became less of a mechanical alien and more of a ghostly presence. Children dared each other to climb the hill at night. A few claimed to see lights in the woods or hear the same hissing sound Eugene had described. Some swore the area near the landing site remained cursed, with animals refusing to enter and radios refusing to work. And then the legends grew even further. Some claimed the creature had returned multiple times. Others believed it had been seen hovering over the Elk River. The monster became a kind of Appalachian boogeyman, invoked in stories told at bonfires and whispered in classrooms. What was once a terrifying real event morphed into something else, a myth shaped by fear, folklore, and the passage of time. But for those who were there, it was always real. In the 1990s, after decades of silence, something began to shift. With the explosion of UFO interest sparked by shows like The X-Files, yes! And documentaries like Unsolved Mysteries, a new generation of researchers rediscovered the Flatwoods Monster. Paranormal investigators and cryptid hunters came to Braxton County, curious about the creature in the metal dress. This time, the town responded differently. Rather than run from its past, Flatwoods began to lean into the legend, and in 1999, the town unveiled a green, 10-foot-tall, chair-shaped sculpture of the creature, affectionately known as the Green Monster. It stood proudly on Main Street, a monument to one of the strangest nights in American history. Then came merchandise, t-shirts, posters, comics books, cryptid conventions. The creature that once terrified the town had now become its mascot. Let's pull up Google Maps. I want to see where Flatwoods, Virginia is. Oh, it's West Virginia. Excuse me. My bad. Let's get rid of that. Window capture. Whoa. There we go. All right, let's look at wow, it's small. Small. Ooh, it's out in the middle of nowhere. I wasn't quite expecting the town so small. So usually when we get to this point and we're looking at Google Maps, we see a ton of stuff about Flatwoods Monster. Or we would see something about what we're looking at. Okay. I wonder. I want to see a picture of the. I would love to see a picture of the statue. So here's a museum. Kinda about what you'd expect. Oh, that's cool. Here, let me hide my camera. Check that out. That's pretty cool. They did a little, like, diorama. Oh, there it is. There's their statue. Chair-like statue. Yeah, it's definitely a stair-like statue. Or not stair, chair-like statue. Geez, hard to be proud of that, right? Oh, there you go. They changed the eyes. That's cool. Oh, there's a slightly better picture of the chair. Yeah, I mean, kudos to them, you know, making something happen. But
I mean, looks like a flat bit of wood to me, so pretty on point, LUL.
Flatwoods Monster? Flatwood Monster? I gotcha. That's funny. That was a nice joke. Yeah, I'm just... Geez, look at dudes rocking like a 20-pack. Dude's got those muscles for days. I'd be commemorated too if I was rocking a 20-pack. Yeah, I would like to visit it. It's kind of far away from my house, but I live the next state over. Maybe one day I'll visit. Maybe. But yeah. Oh, there's the poster. Oh, that's the one I want. And then somebody took a picture of a payphone. Just as mysterious and elusive as a cryptid. Reserved parking for monster visitors. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. Let's close this out.
Seems like a stop on a longer trip rather than a destination itself.
Yeah, it does. So my folks live in Arkansas. I know you're across the pond. So if you were to draw a straight line between where I live now and where I used to live, this is kind of in the middle. So maybe one day we will get a maybe one day we'll get a stop. But I don't know. It's just I'm not seeing like massive amounts of come and stop at our town kind of thing, right? And that's what I'm getting at. It comes down to who's making money off of it. That's the first rule we try to follow when we're investigating stuff like this. Who's making money? And it seems like today people are making money off of it. Not so much tourism back in the day. But that's okay. You know, times have changed. It's a little bitty town in the middle of nowhere. I get it. So maybe one day maybe one day I'll get a stop over there. Maybe. Don't quote me on that. So, we've come to 2018. The Flatwoods Monster Museum, which we just looked at, opened in Sutton, just a few miles from the original sighting. Inside are newspaper clippings, personal testimonies, declassified Blue Book Project documents, and even replicas of the creature based on Kathleen May's original drawings. It's not just a tourist stop, it's a preservation of history. And the people of Braxton County no longer fear the monster. They celebrate it. One of the most powerful aspects of the Flatwoods case is its consistency of the original testimony even across decades. And in 2000, researcher Frank Fresno Jr. published The Braxton County Monster, the cover-up of Flatwoods Monster. Based on years of interviews, FOIA documents, and site investigations, he interviewed several of the original witnesses, now in their later years, and found their accounts virtually unchanged. Fred May, in particular, was adamant it wasn't an owl, it wasn't gas, it wasn't panic, it was real. We saw it, and we were there. Fresno's work reignited interest in the case and helped bring more attention to the broader 1952 UFO flap, a year filled with strange lights, strange sightings, not just in West Virginia, but across the country. His book posits that the Flatwood Monster was part of a larger coordinated event, one that was swiftly and deliberately hidden. Whether or not you agree with his conclusions, one thing is certain: the witnesses never wavered. Not after all the ridicule, not after all the attention faded, not even as the decades passed, their story remained the same. And over time, the Flatwoods Monster came to represent more than just an unexplained creature. It became a symbol, a memory, trauma, and a transformation. It represents how communities handle fear, how individuals process events that defy logic, and how something terrifying can, in time, become part of a town's identity. There's something deeply human about that. And it forces us to confront a difficult question. What do we do with truths that don't fit into the world we know? Do we ignore them? Do we ridicule them? Or do we just listen, just for a moment, and consider the impossible? Because in the hills of West Virginia on a quiet night in 1952, something impossible happened, and the echoes of that night are still felt to today. So the deeper we go into the Flatwoods Monster case, the more we find ourselves standing at the edge of a paradox. Something both too surreal to be real and too consistent to be dismissed. 7 witnesses, a sudden object from the sky, an unexplained identity, immediate psychological effects, and swift, silent government response. If this were fiction, it would be too neat, too dramatic, and too convenient. But this wasn't fiction. Ooh. Big thunder outside. Wow. This was the Flatwoods, West Virginia in 1952, and something did happen there. Something that would never be fully explained. And despite the attention, the books, the documentaries, the tourist attractions, and even the museum, the essential questions surrounding the Flatwoods Monster remain unanswered. What exactly fell from the sky that evening? Why did so many people across the region report seeing similar sights? And what caused the physical symptoms experienced by the witnesses? Why did the government take such an immediate interest, then offer such a weak explanation? And perhaps the most haunting of all, why did the witnesses never recant? Kathleen May passed away in 2009. She maintained her story until the end, and so did Eugene Lemon. So did the Mays boys. They never sought profit, they never changed their accounts, and never seemed interested in sensationalizing their experience. In a world where people chase clout and spin tales for fame, the Flatwoods witnesses seemed only want peace and truth, but they never got neither. The role of the military and federal investigators in the Flatwoods case raise another persistent question. Did they know what this was and choose not to tell us? We know, thanks to Project Blue Book archives, that the Flatwoods Monster was categorized as, quote, unidentified. Officials were sent to collect physical samples, witnesses were interviewed, but not provided with explanations or follow-ups. And later the event was quietly closed with the owl theory, despite direct contradictions. If this were simply a case of misidentification, why the secrecy? Why the on-site personnel? Why the no public follow-up? These are the hallmarks not of confusion, but of containment. Whatever the Flatwoods Monster was, the response suggests it was known, significant, and not meant for public understanding. So we're getting close to the end here. I hope y'all are formulating what you think really happened, because I'm working on mine too. As with all the high strangeness cases, there were two camps, the skeptics and the witnesses. Skeptics say it was a case of mass hysteria, that the children's imaginations ran wild, that a natural event, a meteor, was paired with misidentification of an owl, and the result was a fear-fueled exaggeration. They point to the lack of photographs, the absence of physical proof, the idea that people can see what they want to see, but the people of Flatwoods didn't want to see anything. They weren't looking for monsters. They didn't benefit. If anything, they suffered from what they believed they saw. And that's what makes this case so different. So many UFOs and cryptid sightings hinge on a single witness or blurry photos or conflicting accounts, but in Flatwoods, the testimony is remarkably stable. It doesn't change, it doesn't evolve, and it doesn't try to sell you anything. Not until today. What it does is stand firm. Quiet, cold, and consistent. And for some, that consistency is more compelling than any photograph ever could be. Today, the Flatwoods Monster is a local legend, cultural icon, and cryptid among cryptids. It has joined the ranks of the Mothman, Jersey Devil, and the Chupacabra as modern American myths. But there's a difference. The Flatwoods Monster wasn't just seen, it was felt in the burning eyes of teenage guardsmen who never wanted to talk about it again, in the nausea and fear experienced by children who grew up and swore their story, in the quiet shrug of a mother who knew what she saw and didn't care if anyone else believed her. The Flatwoods Monster isn't just a tale, it's a scar, a reminder, and truth, and belief doesn't always meet the middle. Sometimes they live on opposite sides of a fog-covered hill in 1952. So, we've come... Oh, jeez. I said it. Let me get my drink. Gonna take a quick bathroom break. We're gonna come back and we're gonna wrap this thing up. We're gonna wrap it up in a nice, neat little bow. And we're gonna come to conclusion what we think the Flatwoods Monster is. Stick with it, folks. Here we go. Okay. So we've come to the end, folks. We've come to the end. Are you ready? Are you ready to formulate your opinions on the Flatwoods Monster? Because I am. I think I know what I need to say. We've got a little tiny bit left to talk about. Little tiny bit. Tiny small amount. So what do we do with stories like this? Do we file them under folklore? To be retold at Halloween parties and cryptid conventions? Or do we take a harder look and ask if maybe, just maybe, the world is weirder than we allow it to be? Maybe the Flatwoods Monster wasn't an alien, or a ghost, or a government robot. Maybe it was something entirely new. Something that doesn't fit neatly into a box. Something that's existed for just a few minutes in a perfect storm of time, place, and silence. And maybe that's enough Because the truth is this.
Whatever landed in Braxton County that night, it was real to them. And maybe that's the only truth that matters.
Maybe. Just maybe. Think about it. All right. So let's come to a conclusion. Let's talk about what we think the Flatwoods Monster really is. We are seeing signs of definite. We're definitely seeing signs of UFO extraterrestrials. But on the flip side of this, we're also seeing like heavy signs of cryptids. So this comes down to more than. Geez, this is going to be more of a personal belief than evidentiary understanding. Okay? So we're looking at either it's an extraterrestrial, it's a cryptid, it's governmental, or it's interdimensional. I don't think that it's a government thing. I really don't. Simply because of this. Okay. I don't have a reason, but I don't think it's governmental. I really don't. Let's kill the creepy music. Stop the creepy music. I don't think it has to do with the government. I just really don't. Like, how are you going to measure fear in a community of people that are minors? Excuse me. Like, how are you going to use folks that are quote unquote hillbillies to be an effective gauge for human emotional response to something otherworldly? You know, if you're asking me, if I were to do something like that and I work with the government, I would choose to do it in a big populated city because you would have a wider demographic of information to pull from, not just hill folk that work in mines, right? So that's why I don't think it has to do with government. I don't. I think it's far-fetching. I don't think it has legs. I don't see, aside from a conspiracy theory, that it has any real foundation. Which brings us to the cryptid idea. Is the Flatwoods Monster a cryptid? I think not. Simply because we have witnesses from 100-mile radius around Flatwoods stating that they saw something in the sky that night. And cryptids do not come from the sky. Plain and simple. Cryptids are, by definition, an unknown animal. Plain and simple. It's a creature that lives here on the planet, and we have just yet to discover it. So I don't think it's a cryptid. And for the
What about thunderbirds?
Thunderbirds, sure. I could see how thunderbirds could be part of the discussion. But there were no like real reports of like bad weather, which is generally a precursor for thunderbirds. In a perfect scenario, thunderbirds travel in storms, and they kind of flit in and out of the thunderheads that are, the clouds that produce thunder. and lightning. Uh, but you don't really see much in the way of folklore and storytelling that has to do with thunderbirds crashing to the planet. Thunderbirds kind of fall into the vein of like the phoenix, huge birds I mean, I don't know. They're just huge birds that have otherworldly features. I I could see the correlation. I see the parallel, right? But I don't really think like tell me why you think it's thunderbirds. I'm curious to know. Tell me why. I want to know. Because this is what we do. We investigate. Uh, we will investigate everything that has to do with what we're talking about for this episode. And if Thunderbirds you feel is a valid theory.
I was just making a joke
Oh.
about cryptids that come from the skull.
Oh, no.
TBHLUL.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, I get you. Yeah, I guess there are sure thunderbirds are cryptids that come from the sky, but you know, it's a valid response. I applaud you for for checking me. Thank you for checking me. But I don't think we're dealing with a thunderbird. But thank you. Thank you for your joke. Joke. Joke made. So I think the only thing we're left with here is extraterrestrial. It has all of the hallmarks of a UFO crashing, and albeit it's weird that the initial interaction is with some creature that comes from behind the craft. A little weird for me. I'm a little stickler for the details. That's a little strange. Like, I feel like an advanced technology like extraterrestrials would know if somebody was walking up on them. And it feels weird that they would be on the opposite side of the crash. However, looking at everything in broad strokes, I have reluctantly come to the conclusion that we're probably dealing with extraterrestrials. That this is probably, an alien craft crashed. And in the time it took them to run on foot to the crash site, I can imagine the extraterrestrial probably did an SOS, whatever. And, my brain goes to, okay, because I've been playing Helldivers lately. Helldivers 2. When you go to extract in Helldivers 2, it takes like 2 minutes for them to come pick you up. You send up a beacon. Oh, yeah, the beacon is up. We'll be there in 2 minutes. 2 minutes and counting. And you've got to hold your ground for 2 minutes until they come and get you. So who's not to say this is an extraterrestrial craft that crashed, sent up an SOS beacon for extraction, and the time that it took them to get up the hill to where the crash site was, the extraterrestrial was there, defending its location, and it did whatever it could to scare away the people. And after the people were scared away, it received its extraction. It took the ship and itself and it got the hell out of here. Simple as that. That's why we have evidence of radiation burns, the eyes, the face, the throat. That's why we have evidence of vegetation being crushed. Something was there, but there's nothing there. Something crashed or landed, and it came out to protect itself from the humans that showed up. The humans were scared away, and in their absence, they were lifted away. And I think that's what we're dealing with here. I think this is legitimately paranormal.
Now I think about it, there are actually a lot of accounts where sources land and the occupants get out to fix something before leaving again.
Absolutely. And you know, we talked about this in season 1, that if the aliens are so advanced, why are they always crashing here? Right? You get it? Get it? Yeah. And the you know, Aeon, you'll get to know Aeon before too long, but Aeon was like, "Oh, well, it's just a bunch of college kids on a road trip, and they got, you know, drunk and got mixed up and crash landed here on the planet while they were sightseeing, and then mom and dad came and picked them up." So I feel like that's what we're dealing with here. Somebody may have been sightseeing, a malfunction in the family car. Mom and dad showed up in the Volkswagen or the family van, picked them up, scooped them up. We carried them away back home. I definitely feel like this is extraterrestrial. So
I'm not saying it's space aliens, right? But it goes without saying it's fucking space aliens.
I think we're dealing with space aliens here. This really feels extraterrestrial at its core. And, you know, maybe there was a ship malfunction. The kids in the craft crashed. One showed up, you know, the guy with the biggest muscle steps up to defend off the locals, the natives. And mom and dad scooped them up and carried them away. But of course, mom and dad's craft was 100% functional. So we never saw it. It's this theory that Anne and I have put together that planet Earth is just a zoo. That we are here simply to be seen as animals in a cage, and the UFOs that we see are extraterrestrials coming to visit the planet on a sightseeing trip. We are here just to be viewed by the extraterrestrials. It's a sound theory. It really is. And that explains why we have so many UFO sightings. It explains why we have so many cryptid sightings, because they're going to, you know, think of like the Grand Canyon. You know, people go and visit the Grand Canyon and they say, don't go past this point, don't go down into here. But inevitably, we have people, you know, check out YouTube. Or we have people that are going to go past the limits, past the point where they're allowed to go, just to see what we're not supposed to see. And this translates directly. You know, we are animals in a cage. People fly by and see us. And out of the 100 that come and visit, we've got 1 or 2 that land and want to poke around because they're the rebellious type. Oh, I want to go down there and I want to poke at the locals a little bit and I want to see what they're all about. Or I want to go and make fun of the monkey and behind the bars, or, you know, whatever. It's sound logic. It makes sense to me, and I'm going to continue saying it until I'm blue in the face. But we are just here, and everything that we see and don't see, or think that we see, are sightseers on vacation to come and observe us. We are in a petri dish, and generally they just watch us from a microscope, but occasionally they put another drop of something else in the petri dish with us. And that's what we're seeing. So I firmly believe that the Flatwoods Monster was not a cryptid, not governmental, but extraterrestrial. And here, not by their own accord, but by accident, by happenstance. And that's the reason why they were gone so quickly. If I'm wrong, email me. Tell me all about it. BeyondShadowsPodcast@gmail.com. Tell me all about it. Tell me. So. Oh, geez. I said it. I have little to nothing left. Jeez. All right. That was done. This is my theory, and I'm sticking to it. This is legitimate extraterrestrial. However, it was fleeting. And that is the case of the Flatwoods Monster.
But it goes without saying it's fucking space aliens.
So, oh, geez. I'm not opening another beer just to take a drink. I'm sorry. That's my segue. If you found this episode interesting and you've got something you want to say about it, I'm going to start pushing this, and I'm sorry that y'all are going to have to keep hearing it for a little while. If you don't agree with what we've got to say tonight, email us at beyondshadowspodcast@gmail.com. Let us know if we're wrong. Tell me what your theory is. I want to know. If you got an idea for an episode, tell us. We want to know. BeyondShadowsPodcast@gmail.com. It's at the bottom of the screen. It's over here. Check it out. Email us if you've got your own ghost stories, cryptid encounters, whatever. We've been doing this for a year and nobody's emailed in yet, except for spam. Not a bad situation, I don't guess, but we're going to keep trucking, doing our own thing. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the follow button. You don't have to subscribe. Hit the follow button. Or I guess YouTube subscribe. Yeah, I'm thinking of Twitch. Hit the subscribe button. You don't have to hit notifications, all that stuff. Every single person that follows helps our numbers. We are not funded by ads. We don't get much, if anything. We're doing like $50 a year from ad revenue. If you can find it in your tiny little hearts to hit that subscribe button on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening tonight, please do. We would appreciate it immensely because it helps us so much. The analytics is what's keeping us away from being monetized. So we can get a little tiny chunk of what the big guys are getting. We do not get paid. We have no paid endorsements for this podcast. So find it in your heart to hit that button. Let's see. What are we going to do next week? We did cryptid this week. Let me look and see what the lineup has been. So we did cryptid this week, skull experiments last week, UFOs. We did a haunting 3 weeks ago. We did an exorcism before that. So I think we're kind of on par for another like haunting story. So let's shoot for something ghostly related next week. Nothing set in stone, but something creepy, right? Something ghost related. I'll come across something in my travels this week and find out exactly what we want to do. But I think we're going to shoot for something ghostly related. Not quite sure what yet, but we're going to do it. We're going to do it. But before we go, I do have a closing monologue I want to read. But before I read that, thank you, Lip, for being here tonight again. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate every single second that you're here. It's nice to know that I'm not just talking to my screen. It's nice to know that somebody's just listening. Thank you so much. I think it's been you all night long.
A pleasure as always.
Yes, I'm very grateful to have you here. You know, we are on par to do something a little spooky next week. We're getting close to, it's almost August. Oh my gosh. The closer we get to spooky season, the closer we're going to get spookier. It's just going to get better and better every week until spooky season is upon us. And let your friends know that we are doing this every week, every Sunday. Come and join the show. Comment. We love the comments. We love the social interaction. We're glad to have every single person that shows up. Thank you again, Lit, for being here. I'm going to close us with our little... Oh, geez. This script jumped all the way to the top. I'm not going to read that. Let me scroll down this a little bit. Here we go. I do have a closing monologue, and I will read it and send us out. So thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. If you've got your own paranormal story, reach out to beyondtheshadowspodcast@gmail.com. Let us know all about it. We will tell your story live on the podcast. Sunday nights on Twitch, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't be scared. Tell us your stories. We want to hear it all. I don't care if it's 2 paragraphs. Tell us. I would love to hear your stories. Oh, wait. Lip, I told you I was going to tell you my ghost stories. Do you still want to hear them? I will gladly crack another beer and tell you my ghost stories. Do you want to hear them? I'll tell you. I'll tell you. Yeah. I'll tell you. I'm not scared to tell my stories. I have a few. Actually. I have the Sierra story that ties into a green orb.
Next week to go with the ghostly theme.
Oh, yeah, okay. We'll do
I've
that.
got work in the morning.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's all good. Next week, we'll open with my ghost stories next week. I've got, we'll call it the Sierra story that ties into the green orb story. And we got some EVPs that week. Oh, it was just wild. Yeah. We'll tell them next week when we do the ghostly stories. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to hit you guys with the closing monologue. And I'll see everybody next week. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Lit, for being here. Here we go.
Maybe the Flatwoods Monster wasn't an alien, or a ghost, or a government robot. Maybe it was something entirely new. Something that doesn't fit neatly into a box. Something that's existed for just a few minutes in a perfect storm of time, place, and silence. And maybe that's the only truth that matters. You've been listening to Beyond the Shadows podcast tonight. We climbed the hill in Flatwoods, West Virginia, looked into the glowing eyes of the unknown, and listened to the voices that never change their story. The monster may be gone, but the shadow remains. And no matter what you do, make sure you follow us. Beyond the Shadows. Good night, everyone.
A creature like that. How would it ever die?
And this monster starts running right at me.
Annihilated by nuclear bombs.
Beast is not dead. I put 4 bullets into him.
Oh, you're crazy.
But I saw that monster too. All I want is for someone to believe me.
Contaminated.
Face. Horrible. Look like it would scare you to death.
All right, let's get to work.
Feel the shadows.